All right, here we go. Get everything set up here. AC's off, heat's on, at least visually. And it's another Sunday school live stream. My voice already given out. It's crazy smoky in Washington, and I just do a lot of talking for a living, whether it's in front of camera or not. So I'll be drinking even more than normal. I've got water, I've got Diet Coke. Hopefully, everyone's saved up lots of maintenance to get through today. Bring your questions. If you're not a member yet, that's fine. If you're not a subscriber yet, though, you're going to have to click subscribe to be able to chat. It'll take about 5 minutes, then you're synced up. And yeah, the NFL is on. Well, that's something I have to compete with, I guess. I thought today, while you guys load up some questions, I would show you a little bit of, I mean, I always share a lot of business stuff, but I think that's what keeps it connected to you guys. I'll show you guys the member coins, the mock-ups. So you kind of get a peek into the process of what is like, like we have this coin, right, that we sell to start this whole thing, which people have already left some reviews are like, the TLDR of the reviews are like, thought it was gonna suck, turns out awesome. Like they didn't realize it'd actually be like metal and done well. And and part of my brain's always like, but we're aquarium co-op. It would be done well. Like I've strived so hard, especially something I'm passionate about. So the new coins, let me see if I can cue that up here. Year one. So the way these coins are supposed to work. So the way they're supposed to and the way they do work can always change. So know that. Don't make Candy's life bad already because we don't know. They're still being printed and minted, or I guess minted. They're being minted. And we got to do background work to get them going. But this is what year one. So once you become, there's a couple of qualifications. You have to be a YouTube member for a year, and you have to sync up with our website. So if you guys haven't done that yet, you save 5%, all of those good things. And then I guess there's another, there's going to be another qualification. That is in a country we ship to, which that's growing every month or so. So if we don't ship to your country right now and you've been a member, hold on because it'll backdate, right? So if you've been a member for 5 years, it'll give you all the coins we have up until that point. So without further ado, here's coin number one, hopefully on the screen. Yeah. So this is meant to be kind of a bronzy type actual more metal coin. And so you guys will get this one for free and add it to your collection, whether you're going to put it on display, whether you're going to carry it in your pocket. I do think, though, that carrying in your pocket, at least your latest, well, one of them, you just have to carry one of them, would be a very good way to, kind of show that you're a member at an event. If you ever show up to an event like Aquashella, like we're going to, you show the Super Nerd coin, and usually you get some extra. We bring extra stuff. I don't want to speak what we're exactly bringing for Aquashella, but it'll be a little expendy. So it's a good one to show up to. If you're thinking, is that a true statement? I think if you're a member, it's cheaper to buy an Aquashella ticket than it will be to buy the item we're giving away. I think that's a true statement. So, very worthwhile, I would say. And then we've got coin number two, the 2 year. This right here, the silver one, right? Can you put the coins in your aquarium? I wouldn't suggest it. I would wager at the very beginning it's probably fine, but then over time it would probably rust or chip or something, and then bad things could happen. So I wouldn't advise that. These full-on metal ones, kind of like this one, these prototypes that I've gotten, probably definitely wouldn't do that, especially with shrimp and snails. I don't know the exact, is it alloy? I don't know. It's a mix of metals, so I don't know exactly what you call a mix of metals like that. But yeah, so there's year number two. We're going to get those going, make sure that the system and everything works, because it might not seem like it, but a print run of coins like that, I want to say is like $4,000 each just to do like a minimum run of them. So we want to make sure the system works because we're investing like 8 to 10 grand before we go and print what's year 3, 4, and 5 look like, and they're gonna get more intricate and cool and stuff like that. So Yeah. So what do the coins do? They look awesome. That's what they do. One thing I'm considering, by the way, so considering the the rare and exclusive like Corey in the wild coin. That's this one here that we developed. This one only I have on my person, or my wife has when she's with me, and um, I have to hand one to you. And the goal is that we would meet up, and I would meet a fan. Why is this not moving? It's killing me. Okay, here we go. Still working. Okay, I would meet a fan outside of the pet world. So that might be we're at a baseball game, or we're at the grocery store, or we're on a plane going somewhere random. Then I might be like, hey, here's this super cool coin that's very rare. And so I'm trying to think of like, what's this currency going to do that most people could use it for? And one of the ideas, I haven't committed to it yet because I haven't run it by my team. And so a lot of times they're like, you just bit off more than you could chew. But one idea I had was if you get the special wildcaught coin from me at events, maybe we'll start doing some dinners. So it's way too much to bring like for me to do an event with like 70 people and then go to dinner with like 40 people. But what if we could do it where if you had a special coin, like I've got to eat every night basically, and it might just be like myself, Zenzo, and you. And we just sit down, we have dinner, we talk, maybe it lasts an hour or something, and then I redeem that coin. So it's like a currency. And then over time, maybe I'll find other things to spend that currency on. I don't plan on giving a ton of these away though, so they're not going to be like everybody gets one of these. Like I don't want to buy a billion dinners. It's mostly meant to be a special occasion type of thing. So, yeah. Free memberships in the chat from Fish Tank Barn. You got to opt into that if you haven't already. So, a lot of people ask later in the stream, well, how did that work? So I'll get it out of the way now. Will coins ship international? They'll ship international for shipping there already. So that would be Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Guam. We're still working on the UK right now. I keep signing paperwork though, signing my life away. We might get through it one of these days. Let's see here. What do the coins do? I plan to use it as a reminder to enjoy nature daily. Yeah, I mean that's kind of I like to fidget with stuff a lot, and so I might be in meetings or um, I don't always have a use for it. I want a use for it. I keep thinking if I had a bunch of these coins and I still played Magic the Gathering, these would totally be my tokens. This is totally like a fungus or a thallid token attacking you right now. I have two Amazon swords and a 90-gallon tank that look terrible. They're pale and they melt easily. It's been in there for 6 months with a Phoenix light, root tabs in the sand. What are your thoughts? So in general, sand makes growing plants a little bit harder. Not impossible, but sand, depending on the sand in particular, a lot of sands compact really densely. And if you've ever, well, I should say if, most people have been to like a beach. And when you go to the beach and you start seeing where the sand is, usually you'll see lush growth. And then as you kind of get closer and closer and plants are trying to make their way into the sand, they start spreading out and not being as dense and thick and all of that. And that's usually because of the sand. Now, you're putting root tabs in, and that's a great step. I would definitely continue to do that. But what you might find is that you put the root tabs in, you slip it in, but the sand is so compacted around it that the roots aren't really finding their way in. So an experiment you might try, because we all have to play detective, right? And so is it my sand that's the problem? Is it my light that's the problem? Is it my water that's the problem? Is it, something else I'm not thinking about? One experiment you could try that would be fairly easy. I don't have an example right here, but get yourself like a little. I don't have any dog treats. If I had a dog treat cup, keep dog treat cups around. Get yourself like a little Tupperware, right? Like something that was meant for dip or something, a little Tupperware. And actually, I think I have a video on the channel from way long time ago showing people how to do this. But essentially, you cut a hole in the top, or you just leave it open-ended. You fill that with gravel and root tabs, and put one of your swords into that. Now let that run for like 6 weeks, And if you notice that the new sword is now taken off like gangbusters, you know it's basically that sand holding you back, right? And I suspect that it is the sand, and the only way around that is going to be either swapping out, which that could sound terrible, or way more root tabs, which that's usually the route I go of. Like, I could just throw a little bit more money at this and probably get it to work. And yeah, that's my answer. Because Amazon swords are one of the easiest plants to grow. They grow under almost no light. They just really need a lot of food. And so getting the food is the hardest thing, especially another thing I don't like about sand, and other people love this about sand, is that when the fish poop, the poop stays on top of the sand. Great for keeping a clean aquarium, terrible for feeding plants though. We want very molmy, poopy substrate, basically that mud made out of fish poop. That is one of the best foods to keep your plants going. And so things like gravel or larger sands, they really are beneficial to that. And that's why I recommend just go with a normal gravel. Over time, your substrate will continually get better for the plants as opposed to sand. A lot of times over time gets worse for plants. Not necessarily worse for your aquarium, but worse for plants. All right. Kitty, or wait, no. Killer Kitty donated 5 subs. Thanks. I love when the community gets more people into it. So if you're thinking about it, you could hit the like button. You could also share it too. That's like one of the best things people can do is introduce the Aquarium Co-op brand to new people. What's really funny is when we find people that don't even keep aquariums but just like the nature part of us. So that's weird. Let's see here. Is it possible to sync our memberships to our online store? Yes. I thought you previously mentioned you get a 5% discount for members. That's true. You basically go on the website and there's going to be instructions under club, or if you dig around a little bit, you're going to find it basically. It's not that hard to find. And yeah, you sync it up, you get 5% off everything. There's also, you get access to like a scratch and dent thing and some member only items, that kind of stuff. Nothing too crazy, but enough to be, a tip of the hat to be like, hey, thanks for being a member. That's kind of what it is. I got to figure out why my camera like bugs out every once in a while. That's on my to-do list. Not enough to stop the live stream today, but enough to gotta remember to do it. I've got a black background, black background roll-on paint brand or type. I've used Fusion Spray, but about to do a tank, and it's running already. Okay, so you got a tank that's already running, and I've run into this myself. You got a tank, you're going, I really should have set up a background when I did that, but I was in a rush. And maybe you might have 3 inches or 5 inches of room. You might have feet, right? But if you only have a few inches, it can be really hard. So in a very narrow, I would say like under like 8 inches, my recommendation is to use either like black poster board, fabric, if you go buy like black fabric, or a black trash bag. It actually looks really good. You might think like, oh, it's gonna be all wrinkly. The reality is once you get these things behind your aquarium and you put a bunch of water and stuff in front of it, it just blends. The goal is not to, when you're setting something like that up, right? When you're setting that up, you're very critical of it. Like, oh, it's not perfect. But the reality is you're just wanting it to not stand out. And so it might be like you get a car painted or something, which I've never done, or maybe your car gets a ding, right? Oh man, my new car's got a ding, and like it's driving me nuts. But the reality is everybody else that sees your car just goes, oh, look, you have a nice car. They don't see the imperfections, and that's what's going to be going on in your aquarium. You put that background, I like black. You put that back there, and if it does its job, you don't go, I've never gone to an aquarium and been like, ooh, yep, the painted black background, that's the highlight of that thing, right? The goal would be, oh yeah, they're running a black background, looks good, tank looks good. But if you do have room, right? Because Legion Aquatic says, what's the best type of black paint? From my painting, I've probably done about 500 aquarium backs at this point in my life. different stores and stuff. I like Rust-Oleum black oil-based paint. I haven't found there to be a big difference at all between like what about a matte finish or a satin. Once the glass is there, it pretty much is the same. So that doesn't really matter from what I've seen. But the oil-based, I find that it rolls on easier and more even, where the latex paints, I guess, smear more, or I don't know what it is, but with the roller, maybe it's less heavy. I'm not quite sure what the way to explain that is, but if I'm doing a bunch of tanks, oil-based black Rust-Oleum paint is the best one I've found to do. But I've done other ones, but if I had to do a bunch of tanks tomorrow, that's exactly what I would do if I had to paint them. Any plans in progress to get an aquarium store in Southern California with co-op products? About the only thing I'm sure of is that Aquarium Co-op will never have a physical store in California. Um, and it's mostly just because the laws in California affect everything we do online and in every other state. And so it would, it's one of those things like, well, the store itself, it does $1 million a year. It's like, oh, in taxes, it cost us 3 million the minute we set up shop there. So highly unlikely that'll ever happen, unfortunately. That doesn't mean we won't support other stores. We're selling to brick and mortar stores there, so you can still get our products and stuff. But as far as us having employees there and doing our thing, unlikely. Just from the way well, I guess laws could change, right? Maybe in 10, 20 years, maybe. Don't know. Flatter gloss paint, um, it doesn't matter. Everything I've painted, whether it's gloss or matte finish, once you're looking at it from the other side, right? So you're painting, right? We're painting, then you got to flip this thing around and look through water and fish. Either way, it looks shiny from everything I've tested. So I don't think it matters. I think you go whatever's cheaper, right? Or you got leftover, or you're going to use for another project. Any of those things. And one of the reasons why I really like the black paint, by the way, because I've painted other colors. I've painted blue. I've painted grays. Like I like gray. I'm a gray guy. Is that when you're painting, right? You got this roller going. Any of the drips that go up or down, right? So you've got this black rim usually, and if you have any other color besides black and it gets up in there, you flip that around now. Now you're looking at it and you're going, oh, you didn't paint very well. So by switching to black, you have to mask and everything, but not only is it masking because paint will seep. So even if you try to get the perfect line, then you take the tape off, you might have a line where light's showing through, or it's going to seep and then it's going to go beyond the rim. So black eliminates all that, especially when you're doing many, many aquariums. What's a good way to get rid of hair algae in a CO2 planet tank? My advice would be investing in some hair algae eaters, whether it's some Amano shrimp that are being kept very hungry, Siamese algae eaters, Florida flagfish. Any of those will start the process. Now, I would hope that you're also thinking, okay, well, how did I get this algae? Maybe it got brought in, right, from a fish or a plant. And is it growing out of control? If so, then you're probably out of balance with light and nutrients. If it's just it's just a slow thing that happens, usually fish will take care of that for you. So I would introduce some fish. I got a little bit actually going on in the 800 gallon, which I'm like, oh, I should reach in. I can't reach it, so I got to get a grabber. And trying to grab uh, hair algae with a grabber from like 4 feet away is pretty difficult. So I might have to get like a brush on a stick and wrap it around, because a toothbrush works really well. Anything with bristles can really grab it well. Um, so maybe a broom with a toothbrush on the end of it to get it and pull it out. And then, but my problem comes from the skylights. The skylights, it's been, we're setting records. I saw a headline that we had 13 days in a row in Seattle of over 90 degrees, which is a record. So, yeah, definitely, definitely challenges in my fish room at the moment from that kind of sun. Well, not challenges, differences. That's what I would say. I'm planning to make an Indian themed mini tank. What do you think would be some good stocking and plants? but it's got to be mini. I don't know geography enough to know. Are bumblebee gobies Indo like? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not good at that question. I made it. How long? I made it 22 minutes before it's now up to 78 degrees in here. So I don't know if you guys. I have this thing in my room, right? My office. Come here. So this, right? This is how hot it is in here. 78. I'm gonna start sweating a lot if I don't turn the AC on. And then my clock's not right, so disregard that. But the air, whatever this number represents, UG/M meters, 45 is very high. Usually I'm at like 8. And we can see here the history of the air quality. So it's kind of a bummer. I have to introduce more like smoke into the room to cool it down. Otherwise, I'm going to sweat. So it's one of those. But it was crazy enough that when you walk around outside, there's ash coming down, all of that. So it's a little crazy out there right now. Yeah, nice, cool 78 in here. By the time we're done, it's gonna be like 84 if I don't start combating that. So I apologize for the background noise. What do I recommend to cut down on trumpet snails? Assassin snails, which I realize is introducing another snail. Sid loaches or dwarf chain loaches. They only get about that big, and they can eat those. And you could also use snail traps. You could also, the biggest thing usually is cutting way back on food. So if you have a bunch of snails, you could take out like a lot of the debris. So gravel vac, kind of get a lot of the little snail snacks laying around in there out. Hold back food quite a bit, right? So maybe you're only feeding live baby brine or something really clean. Over 3 months or so, it will you'll have the snail start dying off. Now, if you just come back and start feeding a ton again, they're just going to repopulate. So is my fireplace making it too hot in here? No, I've got options for this button right here that actually turns the heat on. This one just turns the intensity, I believe. Let's see. Why is it not doing it? Yeah, so see it? That's barely going. That's off. Now it's a rager. So, but I do use it to heat the room in the winter because it does get cool in here. Not cold, but cool. Like, ooh, it's a little cold in here. Can Australian rainbow fish live with zebra danios without eating the danios? I mean, I've done it in a store, but that doesn't mean I've done it for a super long time, right? So that's not 5 years in a home aquarium. That's like, yeah, a few months it's worked. How many CFM is the air pump aquarium co-op sells? The big one. I don't know. I don't think we rate air pumps in aquatics with CFM. We rate them in LPM, liters per minute. It's 45 liters per minute. I'm sure there's someone in here that really knows that stuff and will be like, oh, 35 liters per minute converts to X CFM. I don't know that off the top of my head because CFM is usually used for like bathroom fans and other types of fans, like the fan I have running right now, but not so much in pressurized air. So. How do I access the member benefits from a gifted membership? Well, after the live stream's done or whatnot, you would just go to the Aquarium Co-op YouTube page, and there's going to be, like, if you click on the community page, you'll now see member-only posts. And then on the home page, so YouTube/Aquariumcoop, on our page, now if you look down a little bit, you're going to see a long list of member-only videos. And so that's one way. Or you can go to our website, then you click on club, you're now in the club, you click on membership, it's going to give you a link to see those videos and that kind of stuff and explain a lot of the benefits. Because you also, like right now, you'd also get 5% off of all the stores around the country that are taking part in giving members a discount. So there's other perks as well. Any advice getting rid of snail leeches? I found 2 or 3 in one of my tanks. I don't really have a good solution. I mean, that's not true. More info is needed. Like, oh, is it fully planted? We're gonna rule out salt. Is it, there's definitely challenges. It's not easy. Um, but in general, I feel like I've never really had. It's kind of like planaria. I've never really had a problem with it. It doesn't mean I don't have planaria. It's that it being in my tank, I haven't seen it be a detriment. So that's where, like, even with snails, I'm like, I still have 4 billion snails. And maybe that's the way I run my tanks. I'm not sure what, everyone experiences, but I haven't really had a big problem with them. I think they just die out over time, for me, from what I've seen. Got an older 90 gallon that uses 55 watt 2G11 lights. What are 2G11 lights? Any recommendations on where to get those? 2G11 lights. What bulbs are those? Oh, they're the compact, they're the CFLs with the 4 straight pins. Where? So I haven't talked about those lights in many years. And I think the reason why is most people have gotten LED. So back, if we rewind, like, let's say 5 years, when much more people had lights that were power compacts, right? And you could get square pin or you can get straight pin. At the time, even then, it was, by the time you're buying bulbs, right? You might be buying good power compact bulbs, and maybe like that 90 gallon is going to need 2 of them. It could be a 4 output fixture. It might need, did it say? No, it didn't say. But some of them would be 4 55 watt bulbs. But by the time you were buying those in aquarium spectrums, you might have already spent $100. And for not that much more, you can start buying LEDs where you don't have to replace. Let me see if I can find. So let's see, straight pin. Well, here. Let me do it in this window, so if I find them, I can show you guys. Straight pin, power compact, aquarium bulb. Let's see. Looks like you might be able to. Well, I've here we go. We'll go on to the old Amazon. Why not? Let's make sure I've got what I want here. Let's see. This big. Going on a shopping trip. All right, let's try it. There we go. So what we're talking about is, oh, come on, not that picture. This right here. You see at the bottom, there's 65 watt, which I believe you can use 55 or 65 watt, usually in the same ballast. This is a 10K Kelvin spectrum. 10K is more blue than 7K or 6700, right? And so you're gonna get your neon Tetra is gonna look good. It's gonna give a fairly bright look to it. And these are running at $25 a piece, right? We'll assume that they're gonna arrive undamaged and stuff. Reasonable expectation. And so if you only have 2, right, 2 bulbs, $50. If you got the 4 bulb, that's $100. Now, the unfortunate part about these lights is, one, they make a lot of heat. So take that into factor, whether you need to heat your aquarium more or that room gets hot. I know we had a dual 96 watt fixture in the bedroom, and it got way too hot. We couldn't turn them on in the summer because it just got too hot in the bedroom. So take that into account. But the problem with the power compacts is, like, a year after you've plugged them in, basically, it's been so long since I've talked about it. I think they're down like 20% capacity already. And so the gases in there, as you keep igniting them, basically, they deteriorate. And so they put out less light than when they were new. And so it used to be the rule of thumb, you would replace the lights every year. If you wanted to stretch it, it was every 2 years. And that cost became more than was a good value, I would say. They do put out a lot of light. I will say that. When you put a par meter on them, they do put out a lot of light. But if I was spending your money here on replacement bulbs, I personally, because maybe you don't know how old that ballast is. And then the other thing I think that people need to take into account is if you're running like two 65-watt bulbs, it's 130 watts, right? To get, let's call it 50 par. You might be able to run an LED, right? To get 50 par that takes 50 watts. So over the life of the thing, it's actually going to save you money just from energy, but then also bulb replacement. So, if you're on a budget, I would say, we go to lights here, right here. If you're on a super budget, I would say, hey, grab the Phoenix 4-footer right here, right? 85 bucks. It'll look just like that right there. And that's not going to give you 50 par though. You'd want to step up to like a Fluval light. That's going to give you more like that 50 par, depending on the exact shape of that 90 gallon. It costs a lot more. So that's, I do realize people are on price constraints. And so, yeah. Here's that club link I was talking about earlier. The join the club, right? If you click this, so you get a little synopsis here, but then you get the what's included, right? So you get the events calendar where we have speakers every month. So if you just got a membership, you'd be getting a speaker. I think it's next Saturday. Andy from Extreme is talking. In-person events, right? Member-only YouTube content. That's those videos. Chat function during the live stream. 5% discount on everything that we sell. And then I also, right here. 5% discount at physical retail stores that we partner with that allow it. So on our retail finder page, you can actually see which ones are giving it, which ones aren't. And then the scratch and dent collection too. So if we get if this right here, if these brine shrimp eggs, if there's a big scuff on the package or someone put a piece of tape and then like, oh, it looks bad, we would then sell this at I think it's like 20% off, 15% off, I think. It's 15, and then you guys get an additional 5 because you're a member, right? And we guarantee everything the same as if it was brand new. So if it's a light, don't worry, that kind of stuff. You're just going to save basically 20%. So it works out well. So you guys can get some cheaper products. And that's the thing, is someone might buy 6 large sponge filters, and then they get them and they go, oh, they're larger than I thought. And they return them, and then we just have these return products that we have to sell it cheaper. So they never went into water. So they're usually all the same. Let's see. New subscriber here. I've seen a few of your videos. I have one question. Can I use 2 30-gallon filters for a 55-gallon aquarium? Thanks in advance. Definitely. In fact, I prefer doing that compared to one 55-gallon filter, right? You might get one on each side. Usually 2 will hold more than just one. And as far as media goes, you're going to get better circulation. Yeah, I definitely would say no problem at all. And the one thing I would mention to you though is, you've seen some of our videos. If you haven't, it's turning into the shopping network, but I swear I'm just pulling questions at random, and this will be easy. So if you haven't, watch some of the videos, but you might really want to hot rod your filter. So if you use something like the coarse sponge pads, they're going to allow you to basically replace the media with stuff that's reusable. And then also grab yourself intake sponges. So let me go right here to sponge filters. And so on your 30-gallon ones, you're going to want to use these medium sponge filters. And what they do is they stop, well, you can watch this video that we have here, but they stop food from getting sucked in, small fry, shrimp, that kind of stuff. And when food gets sucked into your filter and it sits there and rots, it takes way longer for your tank to digest that than if a fish eats it. Then all the bacteria and everything in its gut digests that, breaks it down further and further, then it poops it out, and it's more in a form that your plants can start using. So, I haven't talked about this stuff in a long time, and I kind of need to get back to it because it's some of the stuff that really changes people's fish keeping. Yes, you can use an actual sponge filter, but if you're using powered hang-on backs, which I do as well sometimes, especially on like display tanks, maybe in a bedroom or house, I do want a hot rod. In fact, when I was working with Dean last Thursday, I put a sponge on the intake of one of the sponges or one of the intakes for an FX6 on the 800 gallon with Ladybird, and it's because it was sucking up snail, Malaysian trumpet snail. Were like, oh, let me go. Oh no, I'm stuck. And so I put this sponge filter on it. So I put the large on it. And another benefit that I hadn't said yet was when you naturally put a buffer, right? So if you have the intake and it's right here, and a fish swims by, you can get stuck to it. Same with snails, stuff like that. Well, if you come and you put the sponge filter that's around it, you now have created maybe another 1.5 to 2 inches of gap. And so now that fish is swimming over here, it doesn't get stuck to it anymore. And the fins can't get sucked up in and it won't be able to get out. So it can also help save fish and snails. They're even larger too. So that's another reason why you might want to use those, even not for the cleaning benefits of like, wow, it's another pre-filter. It's going to, really polish the water. It's going to do a lot of things. It's kind of one of those things that, like, these things sound amazing. They have 10 different benefits. Why wouldn't everyone use this? And then my response is like, I know. Everyone should be using one, right? It's kind of like air stones. Everyone should be using an air stone. Air stones are amazing. The circulation you get, the oxygen you get, the fact that it's going to remove protein films from the top of your water and splatter on the glass so you can clean it. Like, there's all kinds of benefits. But when you talk about something for a long time, or, like an Easy Green product where it's like, wow, I developed that so many years ago. I almost never talk about Easy Green, and I know it's our #1 selling product, and that people use it, a ton. But new people, like you just found us, you wouldn't know that, like, wait, it's your #1 selling product, and like it's got over 3,000 reviews, and people love this. Like, yes. So I just forget to talk about stuff you've done a long time ago. You're like, well, of course Easy Green's amazing. Like, we know that, but not everyone knows us. Can we ship anything to the UK? Not yet. Um, what was the last thing I had to sign a piece of paper to prove that I'm a resident of the United States intending to do business in the UK. So that was the last piece of paper I signed. And then I had to rescan. I took a picture of my passport to try and prove that, and they needed it to be scanned and clearly see all 4 corners of the passport to verify I'm not trying to pull something sneaky. I think that was the last step I've taken this week. So every week there's like another layer of, hey, you got to do these things that you don't really want to do / you've already done, but do them again in this way, and then we'll process it a little more. What would you recommend for shrimp? A fine sponge filter or coarse? There's talking points of each. If you go very fine, right? No shrimplets or anything will ever get sucked up into the sponge or filter. It also is going to clog all the time. And I don't know about you, but when I clean sponge filters and stuff, I'll have to pick out the shrimp out of the bag and stuff that I'm cleaning it in. So there's that aspect to it. What I don't like is if you go on vacation or you're not watching it and it clogs up, you can actually cause damage to your pump in extreme cases. So you got to be on it. Where the coarse one, some of the tiny shrimplets could get sucked into the pump. So that wouldn't be optimal. But we've also found that shrimp that are a little bit bigger love to use that and live and eat from it and just navigate as this big cave network until they're big enough and don't get eaten by the fish in the tank. So I personally use coarse ones. That being said, I can see a case for each, but I prefer the coarse so that I don't have to watch it. And sometimes, I know I've got old videos just in the fish room. If you just take a big sponge that we sell, like the intake, and just drop it into your shrimp tank, you can see hundreds of shrimp using it as a cave structure. It's pretty cool, actually. And it really increases surface area and that kind of stuff, which they're going to eat microorganisms. That's why it's good. Anyway. Is there a damage light at the website for the person with the bulb problem? I don't know. You'd have to look at the scratch and dent. Are you working on launching brine shrimp sieve at some point? Maybe. It's on the, like, everything got stuck in molasses with COVID basically. So we used to be able to like take a product, work on it, and launch it in like the span of a year. Now it takes like 3 years to do it. And so maybe at the same time, the brine shrimp sieve is not like going to be a huge seller. So it's yes. And part of it is we've been waiting to find, we don't have necessarily a good partner for that. We don't have someone who specializes in different micron screens of different material to make sure they're not going to rust and that kind of stuff. And so we need to like go to a CIPS, a Chinese International Pet Show, walk around with the 6,000 vendors and find someone. What you'll find is you might find like a net manufacturer. All they do is nets, but they've got every type of netting material in every micron, and that's all they do. Like, they literally just do netting. So now you have your source for the material that's actually going to filter the brine shrimp. Then you pair that up with maybe like the people that are making our sponge filters, where they'll do the plastic molds to make the sponge filter. We go, okay, we want the mold of the sieve to look like this. We mock that up, and you're gonna get the net material or the mesh that we want to use from this manufacturer. You two work together to get a product. Now we need to put it in a box. We pull in a third vendor to make like a box and do all the graphic work and everything. And then we can ship that to America and we can sell it to you. So being that we don't really have any context on mesh/netting vendors that are doing a wide array, we can't, it's not that we can't, it's much more difficult to pull off than if we're walking the show and go, oh, great, this might be an option. We found 4 options. We can move on this product now. What time is it there? It is about 12:45 in the afternoon here. My flower horn jumped out and hit the floor. Now his belly is super swollen for 2 days. Looks like he hasn't pooped. Any advice? Well, if it was me in that scenario with my flower horn, I would treat the tank with some erythromycin. I would probably use Fritz Maricin because that's what I would have on hand. But the active ingredient being Maricin, an antibiotic. 2 things: swollen abdomen could be constipated, and bacteria is starting to ferment, and food's starting to rot inside. You wouldn't be sad if a little bit of erythromycin got absorbed and started fighting that back a little bit. Also, the likelihood of it jumping out and getting an abrasion, right? Because it's got a slime coat on it, but if it flopped a bunch, right, maybe you picked it up with a towel or however you handled it, it lost that slime coat and maybe you got some abrasions on the skin. We don't want infection to set in there either, so that erythromycin would help fight that off also. Now, if you thought it was only exterior, like if it didn't have this stomach thing going on, you could just use something like salt, because probably your flower horn isn't a planet tank. But I personally would treat it with a round of erythromycin is what I would do. And I would just put 1 round in and just keep observing each day. I might take a couple of days off from feeding, try to hopefully see it go to the bathroom, and just mostly recover from the trauma. It's probably pretty traumatic. I don't know how long out of the water it was, but you know, they've got the whole, it jumps, it hits. If it's on carpet, for instance, that usually creates a lot of abrasions on the skin. If it was on a hardwood floor, it's more of an impact, right? Like a real big thud thing that it might need to, you know, could have internal bleeding. There could be a lot of things going on. And short of spending, you know, $700 to visit a vet, we have to go with what most likely has happened. What are some of the ways we could try and treat things that we don't necessarily understand right now? And that's where erythromycin, broad spectrum antibiotic, would at least cover the most common scenarios. We can't know if yours is a common scenario or, wow, it happened to hit the hardwood floor really hard and then flopped, and then flopped around on carpet for 20 flops. And then I picked it up with a towel and then it made it back to the aquarium. Like, that's like a worst case scenario. All right, can pothos go in an aquarium? Yes. It'll even grow underwater. So that's pretty cool. Just know it's going to absorb a lot of nutrients. So if you got live plants, it might be your dominating live plant. And Vertico, hi from Germany. Hello. I will be at an event in Germany on, what day will that be? That day will be, the event is on October 3rd. That's when I'll be at that event. It's the day after Vivarium. What could cause white mold spots on the substrate of a planted tank? It'd be real easy for food to do that. So if you threw in some pellets and some just landed somewhere and they didn't really get eaten, after 2-ish days, they can start to get what a fungus growing on it, and that usually is what that'll look like. Could be other stuff too, but that's the most common one. How's the 1,400 gallon coming? We talked to you when you were in Minnesota about sending you my giant crinum. The 1,400 gallon has not moved an inch, meaning we just haven't done anything since we've cleaned the background. It's still sitting in my fish room. We're trying to get I don't even know if you guys have seen it really yet because the video hasn't come out, but we're trying to get a whole rack system set up before I go to Europe so it can be working on cycling while I'm gone, and hopefully we can order some stuff to go in it when I get back if they're cycled up, which they'll cycle pretty quick because they're going to be used sponge filters. I'll clean out some gunk in them. I haven't figured out lighting yet. Our new lights aren't here, and that's what I want to use, but what do I use in between now and then? I don't want to open up brand new product just to light it for a month and a half or something. One of my female guppies died overnight trying to give birth. If I notice signs in future guppies, what should I do to prevent it? I think the only thing you can do is reduce stress from a hobbyist level. So if you had another aquarium set up or a large breeder box, you basically want to keep other fish from harassing it while it's trying to give birth and have complications or potentially have complications and all that. You don't want it trying to oh no, it's eating my baby, so I'm going to move. You just want it to be it can sit in some foliage, relax, recover, and deliver on its own time. But I don't think there's much practically we can do as a hobbyist to help them give birth. Maybe some vets could give you some recommendations and things like that, but I don't know if they're actually going to be practical. Any suggestions to get rid of detritus worms? I have some in my angel fry hatchery tank. I would just be gravel vacuuming, and that's going to get rid of, let's say, the lion's share of it. So you're going to be doing 2 steps. One, you might actually suck some up, right? So just manual removal. And then by keeping the substrate cleaner, there's less detritus for them to feed on to reproduce. I don't know if they're laying, my guess is they lay eggs in their poop. And so by also gravel vacuuming, you're probably removing the next hatching batch of them, assuming they were getting enough to eat. Do hydroponic lights work for planted aquariums? Ever tried them? Yeah, for the most part. If you go watch older videos, I've got a video on lighting. Any light will grow plants, essentially. It's there's very few spectrums that won't. Now there's degrees of how well do they grow, but in general, yes, every light, kind of no matter how good or bad it is, can grow stuff, right? Because even the worst actinic light will grow algae. So in a roundabout way, everything will work. It's purely, how much energy is it using? How good do my fish and plants look? How much does it cost? Is it water resistant? Does it reflect the light in the way I want it? Does it have features? There's a million things that go along with it. But in general, if you have a light that was designed to grow any type of plant, will it grow plants? For the most part, yes. Now, once you add water, right? Because a plant might have been, or a light might have been designed to grow a plant out of water. Once you add water, it typically does pull out some of the blue, or it pulls out light that isn't blue. So the deeper that tank goes, the more water there is between the light and the plant. Is going to change the color of light that the plant would be able to photosynthesize. And you can look up tables of what lights or what color spectrum the plants prefer. And so when you're designing a light, a lot of what you're doing is you've got what the plants prefer and you've got what humans prefer. And when you're selling a light, you need to make both of them happy. So you end up going somewhere in the middle. And that's where you might see like, well, it's been proven with science that plants can see red like the easiest. And that's where you might get those bright red lights that you see like that grow marijuana plants and that kind of stuff. I mean, they don't only do that, but that's maybe where you've seen them. But that doesn't make our aquariums look good, right? And so then you might have like a light that's really blue and the neon tetras look great. But plants don't like that as much. And so you might have red plants you want to look more red. One of the easiest ways for people to make plant lights look better and, oh, it makes my red plants look so good, is they have red LEDs. Yes, the plants can utilize them, but when you put red color onto something that's red and it reflects back into the human eye, we go, ooh, yeah, that plant is doing better because this plant or this light is better. And the reality is we're shining red light on it. The plant leaf looks red. We think it's healthier. The plant might be the exact same, but we're visually seeing it differently. So if I remember right, our human eyes see green the easiest. And so it takes the least amount of light and all of that to produce green light, or not least amount of light, but least amount of like energy. But plants see that like not very well. And so that's where we end up getting, when you see on these aquarium lights, you'll see it as a mix. If it's meant for a plant, you'd be like, oh, it's got reds, it's got blues, it's got white, it's got off-white. Then you'll see other ones that like, oh, we have green, we have every color. And most of it is a lot of marketing and just, it's marketing and visual appeal. You can put 5 different lights together and you can do a blind taste test with people, and they might pick 3 out of the 5 fairly equally. I think this one's the best. I think that one's the best. And the human eye, we're not good enough usually to go and just look at an aquarium and be like, is that 6,700 or is that 7,000 Kelvin? The reality is our eyes aren't good enough. We can tell 10,000 somewhere in that 6 to 7 range and in that 3,000 range. It doesn't help with marketing over the last 50 years or whatever that red, like when you go and buy a bulb at Home Depot for your house, soft white is more of that orangey glow, right? And daylight is more of that kind of bluer color. So, I don't think of a nice orange glow as soft white. That's not what I think of. I think of like that's more red. And that's kind of what we're really talking about is the color spectrum, is it going to be more red or is it going to be more blue? And that's visually what we're going to see the differences of. So I can't even remember what the original question was, but kind of went down the nerd hole on that stuff. RGB gamer light for boosted CO2 levels, no doubt. And you get a couple stickers on there too. Yeah, it increases plant growth. Welcome, Squeed. A few years ago, you reviewed the setup of the mainland 5-gallon portrait tank. Did you actually put fish in it? Did it work out? Am I still using it? Would I recommend it? What would I recommend about it now? I don't think... No, we did set it up, actually. We set it up. It was on Jimmy's desk. It seemed to work fine. And I don't know what the price point is right now, but if the price point was still good, yeah, I would recommend it. Yeah. A lot of stuff for me is about price point. And not that I always want to be expensive or cheap, but, if this coin, I don't know if I have a different, maybe this is a good example. If this iPad mini, which I use to test the website, at $12, this thing is amazing, right? At $100, probably still amazing. At $300, you might be like, it's all right, yeah. At $1,000, you're going, not worth it. At $5,000, definitely not worth it. And so that's why I'm saying if the price is still where it was, that 5 gallon portrait tank's probably pretty good still. So if I reviewed this iPad and it was $200 and I was like, at $200 this is a good buy. If it's now 300 though, I don't feel the same way. If it's 100, now it's even better buy, right? And that happens a lot in the industry. So, and why I say that is maybe sourcing from China or wherever they were having that made went up. And so maybe it's 30% more. Well, at 30% more, if there's a competitor tank that didn't go up, chances are it might be better, right? Red background increases your fish horsepower. That's right. Besides pothos, what plants do you recommend for growing up out of a rimless tank? Well, there's a bunch of aquatic plants you can do with Bacopa, moneywort, water sprite. You could do the bamboo plants. If you're specifically asking about house plants, the ones that I've personally done would be spider plants and watercress. I've done goldfish plant. I've done peace lilies. We've seen people do like sweet potatoes and stuff. I haven't done it myself. But in general, this is kind of just an in general thing. Most things can be grown out of water like that. Any of the plants you see people like take the seed and kind of put it in their windowsill and water and grow, that would work. Honestly, most plants want that kind of scenario. Foliage out of water with plenty of water. Any plans to visit Aqua 2023 in the UK next year? No plans yet. That's kind of the first I'm hearing of it, / no idea. A lot of stuff's playing catch up. We're catching up now. We're starting to plan a lot of stuff, but not plan a lot, but get back in the swing of things, I would say, from COVID of like, we're still trying to figure out what events we may or may not do next year. Working on if we're going to have partners to do that or not, who's in the booth with us or not in the booth with us. It's kind of a lot that goes on. So it's a lot more than just like, Corey, are you going to hop on a plane and fly there? That's kind of an easy question of like, if that's all I got to do, sure. It's another question when it's like, Corey, are you going to speak? All right. Are you going to do a members only event? Okay. Are you going to do an event for the businesses? Are you going to bring Dean? Is he going to talk? Are you going to bring Irene? Is she going to talk? Are you going to bring Zenzo? Is she going to talk? Or he going to talk? And so now you start building this thing out that's like got 8 phases to it. And how many of the phases are we agreeing to? Are we bringing shirts? Are we printing those shirts? Are we bringing swag for members? What are we bringing, right? And so to commit to one event, not only is there a big financial cost, but there's kind of a lot of event planning and time prep that goes into making sure that we have a reasonably well done event for us. And it's not just like lackluster and oops, we failed. We try pretty hard not to accomplish that. When or if are you guys going to sell fish from your website? I don't think we are, Casey. We don't have the employees and the systems built out to really accomplish it. And it's actually Zenzo's birthday today, I think. So wish him a happy birthday if you follow his channel. Shipping is getting more and more, I don't know if it's getting more difficult. Shipping is difficult. So like right now, if you're just a consumer, you're probably not worried about it, right? But with all the turmoil with UPS right now, and they're already planning to strike in 2023, if that was to happen, that would probably shut down all of our international shipping, right? And so we're having to look into whether we're going to, what's our backup plan? If UPS goes on strike for 2 months, do we just not ship to international? Do we have a backup plan? Can we integrate that with our software? And so there's a lot that goes on just for that, let alone now mix fish into that. Like, oof, okay, we really can't have delays. We can't, and so the problem is you have to do this like 4-dimensional chess. Like every day, let's just say you're just a normal, mom and pop business with a retail store. Maybe you're playing checkers. And then you start shipping online. Now you're kind of playing chess, right? There's a lot of logistics coming into it. Now, when you start going, okay, so The fourth dimension is if UPS shuts down for 2 months, every other service is going to be slammed because people aren't just going to go, well, I just won't ship. And what people probably don't realize is most companies ship UPS in the United States. That ground where it takes 5 to 12 days to get to you, that's UPS. And so if most businesses use that, they're probably not just going to go, we just won't make revenue for 2 months. Instead, they're going to go, okay, well, we're going to shift to FedEx and USPS. Both of those services are going to get overwhelmed, and we're going to see longer, slower delivery times overall because it's going to, and prices will go up and reliability will go down while that's happening. And then, so we need to be figuring that out instead of, well, what would we do in that situation with fish? Like that's even just a live animal is like another step, even more difficult. Plants themselves, the good news about plants is if packaged right and not put to anything too extreme, can last weeks in the mail, right? Now we prefer it that they only in the mail for like 10 minutes. But the reality is anything like under a week packaged correctly, they're going to do pretty good. Over a week, if it's neutral weather conditions, they didn't freeze to death and they didn't get too hot, they can still do well. Some species start not doing so well, we replace them, right? Anything that doesn't do well, we'll replace. But when you start getting stuff that's lost in the mail, that's one, it's just a big cost to us. Customers not happy. You know, I was reading a review just, I think it was 2 days ago, where person wasn't happy because USPS, I think, lost their meds. And, you know, this is why I always tell people, buy medicines before you need them, right? You don't, like most of us in our homes, we might have like some Tylenol or some Advil or something like that. Stuff that's common, right? If you know like, oh, some of my family might get a headache, we have something for that, right? You don't wait until like, we keep no meds at all in the house. Ooh, you got a wicked bad headache? You want to drive to the store and buy some meds? No, you don't. You want to have it on hand. And so I always recommend people keep ICX, you know, basically Paracleanse and Maricin on hand. So you got an antibiotic, you got a dewormer, and you have anti-parasitic. And that's so you can start treating the same day. Now, this gentleman, I think it was a gentleman if I remember right, they ordered it because they needed it, and it didn't arrive. It took like 6 days or something. And so they were starting to lose some fish, which is horrible. All we can do, our commitment is to get it out of our warehouse as fast as possible, and we're paying for priority shipping, right? So even if you spend over $75, we're still shipping at priority, which costs us a lot of money. It's not overnight, because overnight is crazy levels of expense. And in our testing, usually runs about the same speed. So, but, you know, try to plan ahead, especially knowing we're going into some rocky waters with shipping, just in general, right? So try to get, you know, have some extra meds, have some extra fish food or whatever, you know, your consumables. Try to have some, not so much that they're going to expire on you, but maybe have a little bit extra so you don't run into that, oh no, what am I going to do scenario. All right, we have a member question. Ryan Waite says, time flies. Love all you do for the community and what you built. Well, thank you. And then we got Alexander Engelhart. What's the next task I want to offload to my team as I pull back from running the day-to-day over the next few years? What is the next thing I want to unload? I mean, you guys are kind of watching it happen real time with copywriting, and pictures, and what else is it that I'm unloading right now? Newsletter stuff, even more so. So you guys are watching. It's not that I'm not involved, because I'm still heavily involved in it. It's just that, so like maybe my job with like website pictures, right? My job is to go, okay, let's think of a bunch of things we could shoot to sell this coin because it's in my hand. And then I might still have to be a part of the shoot, but someone's going to take the pictures and someone's going to edit the pictures and compress them and get them in the format we want. And then we can review them as a company and go, we're going to use this one. We didn't like that one. This one, we need to go reshoot this one. And so it might take it from, if I was to do it all, it being 12 hours of work, to if I just in part of the ideas and the reviews, maybe I put in 2 hours of work. And so those are the types of things that I'm looking to do. And what that allows me to do is scale my time more, right? So part of it is from like the 28th all the way till the 10th, I'm not even in the United States. And so everything that I do, I have to get done before I go. I have to give feedback, like there's feedback on an air pump I just gave. There's feedback on another product I just gave. There's checking in on the coins. There's, we have cargo containers landing, I think one or two of them in the next like 10 days. So there's a new product launch on that. And so it's trying to make sure I get all that so I can go be with you guys at Vivarium. So there's 2-day event. Then there's the Germany show, which is like Aquatage, I think is what they're calling it. That's that next day. And then like 4 days later is Aquashell in Chicago, and that's another 2-day event. So while I'm in another country on a different time zone, it's hard to interact with my team. I can give some feedback, but it's not real time. So things move really slow. Whereas right now, like tomorrow, I'll be having meetings with different people. We'll have collaboration sessions. We'll, I do like this. They'll come back. Oh, what if we do it this way? Great, let's do it that way. All of that will be happening real time as opposed to like a 24-hour delay between each comment. So mostly just spinning up more people to free up my time so that I can get to the important parts of putting my ideas into action, supporting where support's needed, and all of those things, and still being able to do the videos and the in-person stuff, because that's kind of stuff you can't outsource, right? I can't just be like, here's a cardboard cutout of me. You could take a picture with my cardboard cutout in Chicago. I started using a Python recently, and it's definitely the best investment I've ever made when it comes to aquariums. That's another on my to-do list. I want to make a Python, not a Python, but a gravel vac, gravel water change vac, all that kind of system. I just want to try, can I make the parts better? Can I change tubing diameters? Can I make it easier to connect to faucets? And can I make it an economy piece as well? The shipping is always the hardest part of that whole product, but I do think there's ways to make improvements. And so even if I couldn't make it more economical, I think there's a few, from having used a water changing system all day long every day for many years, there's some ways I'd like to change some stuff. Like one of the things I would love to do is the whole part that connects the sink, make it all metal. Not just the piece that goes into the sink, not just the next piece. I think we could make them all the way out of metal that wouldn't be detrimental to fish and stuff like that, wouldn't strip out over time. Are people going to be willing to pay the cost? Because all of a sudden that piece, instead of being $11, might be $41. But it would be a lifelong investment on that particular piece. And then you could work on what sizing of tubing and how are the connectors and how pliable is the tubing? How well does it roll up? How do you do you have a system to keep it well or keep it rolled up well without being kinked? And, work on all those things so that at the end you actually I've worked out 8 out of 10 annoyances I had with this product. That being said though, so here's a very business oriented thing. So LaJoya says, I would love a better Python. This is like the number one red flag to not make this product. Because it's like when people say, ooh, do you have a Kleenex? The reason the word Kleenex is used because they dominate the tissue game so hard that people just use the word Kleenex, the brand name. So it's a tissue that you use to blow your nose, but now we just call it a Kleenex. And so to develop a better tissue would be insanely hard, knowing that Kleenex is already that engraved. And same thing with the Python, right? The fact that we take a brand name, and so this water change system, and we call it a Python, the traction is so good there that it's highly it's going to be a real wicked uphill battle to change people calling it from, a Python to a gravel vac system or a water change system. And when people slip up and they go like, oh, I love the new, let's say you said, I love the new Aquariumcoop Python system. The average person would buy a Python branded system thinking that's what you meant. And the reality is you might have meant the Aquariumcoop water change system. So the PR and the uphill battle, even if you made a better product, is so high. It's kind of brutal. Call it an anaconda. Yep. Increase the hose diameter by at least a 1/4 inch for larger tanks. So the magic's going to be in the inner diameter, so how much water can go through that, the restriction at the hose connection, and how heavy it is to carry in the 25, the 50 footer, the 75 footer, and then, like with the weight, how thick the walls of that tubing are. The thicker they are, the less likely it is to kink. The thicker it is, the heavier it is to move. So you've got this delicate balance to pull off. But I agree that some of the benefits are water moving faster. And, I think there's something to be said for, what if we just made the best possible piece to connect to a sink and maybe the best possible gravel vacuum device, and then we could ship those and keep them cheap because they'd be small, right? And then you supplement with like a good rubber garden hose or something like that, where like, yep, you go to the Home Depot or wherever, you physically buy that hose in the length you need. We make a good video on if you need a 35-foot hose and you can only buy a 25-footer or a 50-footer. We can make a good video on how you cut a hose and put an adapter on there and make it the length you need. And that would cut down a lot of costs and also make it probably work a little bit better for people, I think, because then you could make the choice of a garden hose connection has the same connection no matter what. It's the same connection as your water change system, by the way. And you can choose, is it 1/2 inch, is it 3/4, is it 1 inch diameter, and is that inner diameter. And so you could end up moving a lot more water, but you end up having heavier hoses. If you're Zenzo, you can have the 1 inch hose. If you're a little old lady, you need the 1/2 inch hose, something light and easy. So people miss the free stickers. Yeah, it was a good program. So if you guys ever got a padded envelope from us, I don't have any here. Padded envelope where we used to ship at the beginning. We used to pay $5.40 to ship that. Now it's $8.50. Right? So that's where the stickers went. And that's over the course of like 5 years. So it's not double, but it's quite a bit more. And the problem is we can definitely give away free stickers. You guys just got to pay like 20% more on all the products. If we want to give all the stuff we used to give away still away, then and I think it's better that we just keep the things as cheap as we can and keep the quality up and the customer service up, and then you got to buy the product if you want it. And yeah, so inflation, maybe. It could also just be like shipping was subsidized quite a bit by the government in America even. And so it's been running at a loss for a very, 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 very long time. And they're trying to correct that. And so by correcting that, that makes the price go up. And so, unfortunately, another PR nightmare is every time you tell people, like, our shipping got more expensive, people go, great, I will buy somewhere else. And over time, and you can even study people, as long as the other company raises their price later, like, so if I come out and I say, we're raising Aquariumcoop's shipping price by $5, everyone goes, I'm never ordering from them again. And then if our competitor gobbles up all you guys and they go, oh yeah, let's they're buying from us now. And then a year later, they're like, we're upping our shipping price by $5. You guys probably, the odds are, three-quarters of you won't leave. You're like, well, everybody's doing that now, so I'll just pay it. We were the first to act, so it becomes a very much game of whoever has the most money can hold out the longest retains the customers. And that's where you'll see a business like Chewy run at negative $54 million for the year, even though like everyone's like, I buy all my dog food and they got such good prices. And the reason people can't compete is because they're not competing. They're running at a loss, knowing we can carry this for many years, and they will just become the Amazon of the pet industry. That's their number one goal. They own PetSmart and Petco and Marineland and Tetra and Aquarium and Oceanic and Chewy. All that's the same company. So, yeah. So unfortunately, we don't give away free stickers anymore. Like that's how we stay competitive. So that's just it. If I had my option, I would give away more stuff. Trust me, it's it's hard to justify giving away shirts and all that stuff at the events that we already do. So we're trying real hard. You know, we're down. I think we're down 15% revenue over last year, and we're doing more events, right? So COVID's done pretty much, or not done, but um, has calmed down quite a bit. So there are events, and so compared to last year, there's way less money to be investing in things because each event we do is like 25 grand. So we spent like $75,000 giving away shirts and doing stuff, and then we've also made like 14% less money. So and we gave all of our employees raises and everything to help with inflation. So at the end of the year, the numbers are looking terrible compared to years previous. And so that's what leads us to have to go like, well, maybe we got to cut back the free sticker program. Maybe we had to raise our shipping. I think we raised it by $1 or $2 6 months ago or something. So we're making these calculated steps to make sure we remain relevant to you guys and provide you the best value. We could make a choice and look at the end number, right, and go, that number's not big enough, and go, well, what if we get rid of candy and we replace it with someone overseas that's 1/10 the cost? We choose not to do that. We like having candy as an employee. We like you guys having good experiences. And so we have to get creative and find ways of like, we just got to sell more. We got to, hopefully you guys like to purchase from us, and we'll continue to do that. And we'll keep doubling down on customer service and education. And hopefully there'll be something that finally turns and makes it easier for us again. All right. It's something I'm battling at my company. We're trying to add value through blogs and services so you get more for your money, but there's only so much you can do. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's there's just a cutoff. I had no idea those were the same company. Yeah. Well, and that's so in a harder economic climate, the more that businesses struggle, the more that the big businesses can gobble up, right? And so you could see, and I don't know any of this is going on, but you can see like okay, one thing that we do know, right? Remember when basically the conglomerate I'm talking about bought out Dr. Foster's and Smith? If you've been around the hobby for like 10 years, you remember that Dr. Foster's and Smith was kind of like a miniature version of like Chewy. It was kind of just known, like they sent out catalogs and you kind of just knew like, oh, you could buy all the pet stuff there and it was pretty decent. And then it got bought out and they just shut it down and ran it straight into the ground. And they're like, yep, that's competition. Let's just get rid of that. And they got a buyout offer. And so, yeah, let's hope that the power struggle doesn't get even worse. Losing a customer over free sticker feels like they had poor judgment. Yeah, maybe. It's really hard. I don't necessarily, if your value is going down, maybe they were already on the edge. Maybe, and there's always circumstances, right? Perhaps we shipped them plants and they did bad in the mail. We reshipped them and they did bad in the mail again, right? Even though we're out money, we're losing money hand over fist there when we're trying to do our best. Some things are out of our control. It's not like I can drive it to them myself, right? Pick the best specimens, drive it to them, make it up to them. But maybe they had that experience, and then maybe the third time we shipped them, they're like, oh, they're pretty okay, right? And then they see an announcement like we're taking away stickers. Maybe that's the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Maybe your favorite restaurant says, we're not doing the tiramisu anymore. Only 5 people ordered a week. We have to make a whole bunch of it. We're losing money. But maybe it was that plus the food you bought that kept you going there. Without the tiramisu, it's a deal breaker. You're going to go to their competitor. It is. It is what it is, right? So I try to, just go, well, I think most people will be okay. They understand we're trying very hard. And that's what I try to convey is like, I'm always going to try my hardest. And it's not just to make more money at the end of the day. We also have costs of like, we bought a new medical boat for empty Amazon expeditions because it sank, right? So sometimes we're spending money on stuff that like it's just the right thing to do. We also bought like $5,000 worth of meds last year for the people of Peru up and down the river, and it's just like it was one of the ways we could give back. And so, it's not always like, well, we just need more money for Corey's pocket. It's like, well, there's some other stuff we want to do. There's other good things we want to do, but can't let the bank account hit zero. The new cap looks good. That's right. It's my favorite hat. I know. One of these days I'm going to show you. I want to do a thing where I recap some of my favorite products that we sell that I literally use like every day. So Easy Green would be one of them. The auto feeder would be another one. This hat I wear all the time. And so I have multiple hats. Like this is the needs to look pretty good hat. There's the I'm working outside mowing the lawn type of hat where it's gonna have crud all over it and sweat stains, that kind of stuff. And then there are products that I'm literally scared if we ever get rid of them. And the biggest one of that is the hoodie. That hoodie, I live in that thing every trip, I've got coats and stuff, but most time I go grab the hoodie, the Aquarium Co-op hoodie. And I've spent too much money buying other high-end hoodies and other stuff that, because most of the time I kind of want to be incognito if I'm like, I just want to go to the movies, or something. I don't necessarily want to advertise Aquarium Co-op because I'm like, I'm just there to have a date night. But nothing beats the Aquarium Co-op hoodie. It is so good. I've considered having the manufacturer that makes our hoodies just send me blanks, but I'm like, that, I don't know, it feels wrong. I should just wear my own swag. But I really love the hoodie. So, and maybe it's just perfect for our climate, but man, I love it. I love the Murphy mesh hat. That's my other one. I have those 2 hats. Those are my go-tos. If I like to be a little more incognito, I put the Murphy hat on. Just because not everyone instantly knows that it's Aquarium Co-op. There's like, what is that? And Joel's wearing one of his 3 hoodies now. I probably have 10. I've got one that's got burned while camping. I've got one that got a bent zipper. Somehow got stuck in the dryer and bent. Have I ever gotten rid of a hoodie? That's a good question. I don't know that we've ever gotten rid of one of the hoodies. We just add more because eventually when you wear them all the time, they start looking a little run down, I think. It needs a refresh, if you will. And so I usually grab it when I'm cold and I'm like, ooh, I'm at the store. Let me get another hoodie. Or I lose them. Sometimes they're packed away in the camping gear, that kind of stuff. What's my biggest fish? Salt or freshwater? Murphy at the store is the biggest. Ladybird would be the second biggest. Big Maboo puffers. Your company name is strong in the hobby. I think a new style canister filter and a gravel vac would be a good idea. They're definitely on the list of ideas, but if I do it, I also I got to deliver on that, right? I really want to make sure we're not just always putting out Me Too items, right? If it was in here, I would show you to the detriment of my company. I would show you our latest air pump model. It uses Type C So that's already an improvement. So the one we had, right, we're making better. It also has, you can adjust the amount of airflow on it. Our old pump didn't do that. So we continually try to just make our own items better. And whenever we do something, at least have one thing where like, this is better than the competition. It could be something as simple as it's got a longer cord. But that's usually the first step. The first step is like, let's make it better in one way. And then we get feedback. Let's make it better in two ways. And we get feedback. Let's make it better again. Rarely do we stumble upon the hoodie where it's like, this thing was the best straight out the box. Who knew? Who knew it could be this good? Have I ever used plastic tubs for fish? I want to set one up as a quarantine tub, but I'm worried about melting the plastic with a light and a heater. So if you're using like an LED, you shouldn't have any problems melting the tub. As far as a heater goes, I think it's unlikely, especially if you're using like suction cups or something to make sure you're spacing it from the side. As long as you have some good flow in there, it shouldn't get too hot. The only real detriment I would think that I find from using fish in a tub is visual in quarantine, right? So if you get like, even if you get the clearest plastic you can find, it's still not great. You get a little bit of distortion and it's not as clear as you want. And then you're putting fish in there and you're trying to see like a flashlight, like, is that ick? I don't know. Is it okay? Yeah, maybe. And so I really want the clearest glass I can have and just a good light and clear glass to see illness. And so that's why our quarantine tanks, they're lit up with stingrays and they've got clear acrylic plastic, because if there's any time you want to get a good look at your fish, it's when they're brand new and might be sick. That's the most optimal time to really get a good look. And so tubs being cheap, but I know I've missed stuff in the past because they're not super clear. And so they don't save me money if my fish are dying. And so that's why we end up investing quite a bit in our quarantine tanks. And if it's just like, so this person says, I've used plastic tubs with heaters for moving fish and snails. Yeah, if you just had a snail factory, seems fine, right? I don't really need to see them, but if I need in quarantine to see them, that's when I'm like, yeah. I'd rather co-op employees get raises and a free sticker. Good call. Yeah, I mean, they're I'm working on building out the principles for the company so that everybody knows what we live by. But one of the principles is the win-win-win. If you guys have been listening to me for years, you've heard me say that a lot, where it has to be a win-win-win scenario. And this is a good example. So the company has to win. We got to make money. The customer has to win. They have to get a good product and want to give us money. And then the employee has to win. We have to, they have to have a good working experience and get a good exchange on their time to keep doing it and want to do a good job. And so the business will fail if we're not winning on those three. If the customer's not happy, we don't need employees and we don't have a business. If the employees aren't happy and won't work for us, customers won't get product and we'll go out of business, right? If the company doesn't make money and a profit, eventually, piece of equipment broke, they can't do their job, customer unhappy, right? So each level has to make money. And a lot of the aquatic business is set up that way. In a retail store of fish, right? So the cost of a fish, you have 1/3 was the price. You have 1/3 that was the cost of keeping it alive and selling it. So you had to clean it, you had to feed it, you had to have an employee sell it. So that has cost there. And then you have the last third, which is the profit. And the profit is going to cover, like we talked about, the cost of the fish, keeping it alive, selling it, and all of that. Something had to pay for the electricity. Something had to pay for the building. Something had to pay for, the employee time off and all of these things. And so at the end, though, when all that's done, you might go, oh, we sold a $2 fish and the profit was 20 cents. Well, if you sell a lot of fish and you do that a lot of times, you might be like, oh, the profit was 20 grand. And now that 20 grand allows you to, like, hey, like, stuff, our tanks are kind of falling apart at the retail store. I bought used tanks when I first started the store. We've got some that leak a little bit. Those have to be replaced, and the goal will be that we replace them better. So like, oh, we got a little bit better of a tank. Instead of buying a used one that was scratched up, now we buy a brand new one. Can we afford to give it clearer glass? That'll be a little bit better. So yeah, the win-win-win principle is, and we, in every scenario we have, the customer is in there because we're a business, right? So we also tell our retail partners that it has to be win-win-win. We've got to make money, you've got to make money, and that customer's got to be happy. If you can't make the customer happy, this can't work. And so we want easy returns, we want great customer service, we want everything that would be going on in a retail store. If you can make that happen, we're willing to take a loss. And because we make more money if you guys buy directly from us, obviously. But we want to make sure the hobby grows and stays good for everybody. So even if you hate Aquarium Co-op, if the store, your local store, makes money from our products to other people that like us, that's still better for someone who might hate us. And because they'll have more disposable income and more fish coming in and more customers. So, yeah. Why does that green wall on the left of Corey just look so fake? Oh, that would be because it is fake. Yeah. It takes no maintenance, which is awesome. Eventually, I'm going to put some more stuff in there, and it will, I don't know if it's going to necessarily look less fake, but it'll look more complete-ish. In general, like in person, it's kind of nice just to have some green. But I haven't decided how I want to set up more. Like if we go, this way, see I still have a hammock that I'm not really using. If we go that way, you'll see crap on the floor. Like that's a light, or that's a chair, that's an award. That's some more of those green, like these things. I've got more to put on this side if I wanted to. It's kind of amazing that, well, I think it's amazing what you can do with framing a shot, right? So like if I keep going, you're just going to start seeing like, isn't that just crap on the floor, like laptop and computer parts? Like, oh yeah, there's all that kind of stuff. That's a keyboard box right there. That's a laptop box. And I just haven't found the right place to put it. If I keep going this way, what do we got over here? Eventually we're going to see like an AC unit. Well, that's this. But yeah, if you frame a shot just right, that should tell you how phony companies could be if they chose to. So like if you get it just right, you're like, oh, look at that wall. And then, like, oh, we don't want that cord in there. Right there. And then I could offset myself and be like, see? Wait, look at that plant I have. But anyway. Nope, not a green screen. This is, yeah. I tried a whole big green screen and all of that, but it just wasn't giving me the feeling I wanted either, so. How do I quarantine plants? Do you quarantine plants for online? Worried about bringing in duckweed and snails into my shop? You're gonna bring them in. So the problem you're gonna run into is if you try and quarantine plants, they're gonna be melting and you'll have to convert them. So you're gonna either need to marry up to like, I'm quarantining plants for 3 months and now they're super good and ready to sell. Maybe 3 months is too long, but or you got to kind of get them in and just sell them. And that's kind of what we do. Like, yeah, we put CO2 to them, we convert them a bit and all of that. But duckweed and snails are unavoidable unless you're only doing tissue culture plants. But no matter how careful you try and be, like even if you quarantine, I would, if you let me, I would place a very big bet that within a year you'll find duckweed in your store. Like no matter what you do, it is so hard to not have that because it just takes one little piece. That's all it's ever going to take. And it's going to be somewhere that you won't expect it. And so even with someone like Dean will have a crop every once in a while and he'll have to get out. And that's a guy that will let plants sit for a month. He's rinsing them, getting snail eggs, doing all those things. And even it will crop into his fish room every once in a while. So, and I already know that he only brings stuff in very seldomly. So at a point where if you had a successful business, like I want to say, I'm sure I could get a report, but I think we're selling like 10,000 plus potted plants. I think it's over 3,000 a week. And so just the odds are so crazy that you're going to be able to be like, yeah, a piece never, and a snail egg never made it. So, and then once it's there, you're not going to be like, well, let me shut down the system. That'll cost me 20 grand to flush it out to get rid of duckweed. You're just going to go, okay, I just got to deal with it. And that's where you're going to look at every other plant vendor, and you're going to see that they basically have disclaimers saying we can't guarantee that it's without. You're going to do everything you can to prevent it, but you can't guarantee that it won't. And so, yeah, it's pretty difficult. But I would recommend just focusing on selling the healthiest plant you can. That's a way better thing to aspire to than making sure that they're duckweed and snail free. Otherwise, just go with tissue culture. That would be my suggestions. You could get a load of air plants for it, and that would go and not be fake. Yeah, but even like air plants, you eventually have to mist every once in a while, right? They have to get some moisture, and so I'm just at a point where I'm not trying to add any more things that need maintenance, right? So more aquariums, more pets, more fish, more plants, more yard, more, anything like that. It's like, I need less about that. All my plants, $300 come for you. No snails or duckweed have made it to my tanks. I'm glad to hear that. I should say there's also ways to set up your systems so that you can have less odds. So for instance, I'm sure I got a video or something. Let me pull up the video. Where would that video be? On our website somewhere, I think. Do we have shipping process? Fast shipping policy, maybe? No, that's just right here. Yeah, maybe. Gotta look around the camera here to see if I can. All right, let me get rid of some of this. Can I make this bigger? Yeah. All right. So, like in our system, so you've got these, it's not showing up on the screen, but those are big, long rows of custom-made acrylic tanks that are all plumbed that go back to a 120-gallon sump. That sump, we inject CO2 into it. We keep crushed coral there. We do all of these things. One of the features that's going on here, even though we're sharing water, we dose all the fertilizers into there. And so if we have a bunch of a fast-growing plant in one tank and it's going to run out of fertilizer, and in the next tank we have a really slow-growing anubias that would grow algae because there's too much fertilizer, that helps balance out. It's crazy how old this picture is. Man, I should go take some new stuff to show you guys how much has changed. Like this whole light rack doesn't even exist anymore. Anyway, but with the overflows, and we've got these giant like pond pumps. I think each one's like 8,000 gallons per hour, I think. And we run one of those for each level. So we run 4 of those for the system. The system also, there's only 2 rows here. Now we run 3 rows. Anyway, so the water that overflows, it's going to carry that duckweed out into the sumps. And so we can get rid of the duckweed in the sumps. And with snails, we actually want them to be eating any extra algae or anything. Because if you have a tank and you sell out, let's say we go to order a plant and they don't have it, the tank sits empty, it's got a little bit of fertilizer going in, and there's light on it, perfect environment to grow plants, it'll grow some algae. Yes, we're going to send employees in and we're going to scrub it down every week. We're going to do big maintenance before plants come in. All of these things are going to rotate stock, but also the snails will help with that. So you can see here the trays, we're going through each one. These trays that we do now, we actually have our own trays made. So we actually, and then here you can see these are made for us. We invented this. This is, think of material just like a tea bag, and it holds moisture really well. What we were finding is plant leaves and stuff would stick to the bag, and if it shifted during transit, it might rip the leaf off. And then while people are trying to pull plants out of the bag, it might rip leaves off. And so this prevented that. And also kept the moisture up, which was good. Let's see here. What else can we show that might be relevant? This is mostly just all the packing stuff, not so much plant stuff anymore. But yeah, you can see the racks here. You can even see, oh, you guys can't see. Let me see. Oh yeah, right on the right-hand side of this tank, you can see right there, there's a narite snail. We intentionally put narite snails in, and you can see there's probably a narite snail egg either on the glass or here. But we intentionally do that just to help clean up. So yeah, but these are racks that we had to build out of acrylic. Now we actually have made like injection molded and everything, so they're way better. But yeah, that's that. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily try to prevent it. I would just try to reduce it and optimize for plant growth. Is it safe to dump excess duckweed in your lawn? I think, so you'd really have to know your topography of the land and whether it could run off into a place you wouldn't want to. I think the official safest thing for a guy like me to say would be dig a hole, throw it in the hole and bury it. No problem at all. Would compost, great, a lot of nutrients. But you wouldn't want a big downpour to carry it into a foreign body of water and then contaminate it basically. I rip down the bag so it doesn't damage the plants. Yeah, you could do that too. They're fairly rippable. I don't know. Yeah, definitely there's that too. Do you immediately remove your plants from the pots or do I wait? I almost always wait. In general, when a plant's in a pot, it's been living there for like 6+ months already. Not in our care, but at a farm. And so when they plant it, well, this is how most of the industry works. So overseas, there'll be giant farms, and they might grow one cryptocorn plant, and they might buy that for, pick a number, 20 cents, 50 cents, something. Then they got to ship that, and it might land in like Florida. And when they're doing that, they might have bought 100,000 cryptocorn plants, right? So they spent $20,000 on cryptocorn plants. Now they got to take 4 of those and put them in the rock wool, and with that put some fertilizer in there and put that into a tray, and now they got to grow them, right? So they might be into it for $1 with labor, and they got to grow that and tend to it for 3 to 6 months, depending on species. Then they're gonna basically wrap it up, pack it, and ship it to us. And then we'll put it in our system. We'll be growing it and converting it for a little bit, up to 2 weeks, and we'll be shipping it during that time. And so when you get it at home, if you instantly just rip it out of the pot, it actually will have a harder time than if you let it sit in the pot where it's already got fertilizer and just mellow out and go, okay, I'm getting used to this light and this water. And so a lot of times I'll bring stuff home in bulk, right? So it's like, okay, I need to do that tank, probably do it in, I don't know, maybe a month or 2. I'll bring them home now. They'll be used to my water, then I'll plant them. And so a lot of times I'll try to let them thrive in the pot before I will necessarily just rip them out of that environment and go, hey, live in this one. One of my Ember Tetras has a big belly. How do I know if it's bloated or carrying eggs? Should I take any action? Well, if it's just slightly bigger, so like when you're looking to sex fish, or if one might be, ready to spawn, females will be like, ooh, you'd have to look and be like, yeah, it's a little plump. If you, look at all your fish, you're like, wow, that one's got a giant belly. It's almost always being bloated from either organ failure, constipation, being egg bound, any of those things. So if it's really apparent, like if anyone in your family goes, hey, that one's huge, probably more like dropsy and that kind of stuff. Where if it's just like, this one's slightly more pudgy, just a little bit, that might be a female carrying eggs that's been eating well. There's not a whole lot you're going to be able to do, honestly. Like, you can definitely read articles and that kind of stuff with us, and you're going to be like, so there's all these things that I could potentially do that might work, but no silver bullet. And the reality is, if you had a good quarantine tank and you move that fish you think has dropsy over there, and you play with it, you've probably got a 30% chance you can save it. With 2/3 being, no, probably not. Probably by the time it gets to that point, that's the problem. It's like by the time it gets that far gone where you're noticing, there's not a lot you can do about it. And so therefore, you just got to give it the best life you can.
My wife's talking about corgis. Will there be an aquarium co-op in Canada? Probably not. Our goal is to not set up any more aquarium co-ops. It's to help other mom and pop stores be successful, because like the innovation, right? I have no idea how many Petcos or PetSmarts there are, but I'm gonna pick a number. Let's say there's 100. And if all 100 have to operate the exact same way and do the exact same things, there's no real innovation there. But if you had 100 independent stores that had the cash flow of a PetSmart and Petco type of chain, you might see tons of innovation. And so I think that's a better path for the hobby to go, is you get the good sides and the bad sides, right? You could also get, you could have it where, let's say with 100 Petcos or PetSmarts or chain stores, they're at this level, and they're always going to be here. And then with 100 independent stores, you're going to have some up here, you're going to have some down here, you're going to have some way down here, some way up there. And but it probably averages out similar. But if any of those come up with something revolutionary, that can then transcend the whole hobby. And so I think that's what we're trying to do. And I don't know that we're right, because we haven't finished doing it yet. We'll know in 50 years, right? It could be that we're making a horrible scenario happen that we can't foresee. But the fact that mom and pop stores can service locally, can offer higher level customer service, have the freedom, and all of these things, in theory, should be a better model. We hope. But we won't know until we've got data back. So, right now it's still very young in the program. I'm dying to be an Aquarium Co-op member, but unfortunately membership is not available in my country, Kurdistan, Iraq. Is there any other way to be a member besides location-based? So, Real Madrid fan, what I would try, and I don't know this for an answer, but I would try using a VPN. So if you were running a VPN that said, like, I live in the United States, and then try and register like a YouTube account while doing that, and then trying to use like a Visa prepaid gift card that maybe was bought in America, that might pass all the checks. So that it's like, yeah, it looks like this person lives in America and you can be a member. That's a lot of work, though. And I totally understand if you're like, yeah, I'm not doing that much work. I get it. Otherwise, we just have to wait, and hopefully it comes through that they allow that country. And it could be, I don't know what the holdup would be like. Sometimes it's laws. Sometimes there's laws that prevent it. So, like in China, YouTube can't happen, right? I have no idea with your country, because a lot of unique things. Yeah, who's coming to Chicago next month? I'll be there. Dean and Irene. Well, I think it's just going to be me or Zenzo and I. Zenzo and I with a lot of shirts and some other swag for members. Yeah. Is that true? I think that's true so far. Where can I look to see a retail partner? My local shop is... Wait. Where can I look to see a retail partner? My local shop is taking y'all. I can show you this. Let me show you. So, we're going to click. Make sure I have it. Yeah. Go to the website here. So if we go to wholesale, retail partner store finder, so right up here, you can enter in your locations or just look at this big old map. And when you click on a location, let's click on this one. The Fish Room in Kentucky. You can see this is their website, this is their email, this is their phone number. They are giving the member discount. This is their store hours. All right. And then you could go, well, what about, I live in Texas. Okay, well, here's Tiny Aquatics. And same info, this is their business hours. They're giving a member discount. Let's find one that isn't. Nope, they are. So that's Aqua Nature Aquarium in California. What about Tropics Aquarium Professionals? They're also giving a discount. So you'd actually have to filter, and maybe this will show us everyone with a discount. So these are all the stores offering a member discount, whereas these are all the stores that are selling our product and may or may not be giving a discount. Like Jay's Jungle here in Utah. They are not giving a discount, and they're open Tuesdays to Saturdays. So it looks like they're closed Mondays and Sundays. And these are their hours. And then if you needed to shop on, why can't I click on this other one? Zoom in more. The Waterfront. Looks like they do give a member discount, and they're open 7 days a week, 11 to 7. So you've got options. Not every state has a partner yet. We're pretty selective, and we wait for them to come to us. That's a big thing, that we don't want it to be like a normal relationship where a manufacturer something just like, we just need to go to every store and get everyone to carry us. Instead, we only want people that already know our brand to carry us, so that they will know our dedication to the customer, what the new products are coming out with, what the story behind the product, how it got to be this way, all of that. We want them to know all that and not just be like, you should buy it because it's going to make you money. We want it so that they know that Aquarium Co-op customers are super loyal, they're good customers to have, all of these things. So, local fish stores do not quarantine their fish. Depends, we do. We're building a whole new, bigger quarantine room for ours. I definitely know some other stores that do. I'm sure there's stores that don't also. There has to be. But in general, so I know, well, I shouldn't say I know. To the best of my knowledge, big chain stores, they have one quarantine tank where they put the sick fish that can't get healthy, but everything's going straight for sale. Do you all have a couple more in the works? I'm not seeing the store in question. Yeah, so the stores only get added to that if they've placed an order with us. We have like 50 stores that have made it through our process, but maybe only 35 of them or 40 of them or whatever have placed an order so far. And it's in the middle of summer, so they might be waiting till the buying season's back, or maybe they're asking questions still, or whatever it is. We we don't want to send any of you guys there, and if they don't have our product, right? So we wait for them to actually place an order and have the stuff in stock for you guys to go and buy if you'd like. Doesn't make sense to do any other way. Is it okay for my betta to eat Hikari sinking wafers? I just added 10 pygmy corridors to this tank. I break the wafers into smaller pieces, and I've seen them swim to the bottom and eat it. I would say definitely. Most fish foods are very similar in the ingredients, and they're just packaged to maybe float or sink or be a different size or a different density or any of those things. So if it goes and eats some other fish food, that's fine. Let them eat what they want. Let's see. I don't have any local fish stores in my area. 3 hours away from the Aquarium Co-op. Well, you at least have that, and the hope would be that over time, more and more mom and pop stores would exist. If the hobby grows, there's more of a need, which means more could exist, and that'd be better for all of us, right? It's that win-win-win. If there's more people in the hobby, we probably sell them more. You have more people to trade fish and plants and knowledge with. The stores, more stores can exist, right? So we focus on actually trying to grow the hobby instead of just saying we're trying to grow the hobby and then trying to maximize profits. Not that every business has to profit, but you gotta spend time. We feel if you grow the hobby, it'll be better and it'll sustain long term. Are we ever gonna come out with easy substrates? We've been testing some, but it's a very slow process, and I think out of the last 5 we tested, we said no to all of them, and it's also not very good economically to ship. So if things change in the world and shipping gets cheaper or importing is cheaper or any of these things help us out, it becomes more likely. Like our salts are crazy expensive to ship, so we kind of drop that. But so just because it doesn't make sense right now, it doesn't mean it won't make sense in a year or 5 years or tomorrow. What substrate would you use for 2 lily varieties and a banana lily? Any substrate would work in my opinion. I just like a coarser one, so me personally, if it was my own aquarium, I would use normal sized aquarium gravel is what I would use, with a bunch of root tabs, get a bunch of fish poop mixed into there, and you probably get some growing like gangbusters. Can I suggest a tiny pellet that floats for tiny angelfish and pygmy hatchets? Has to stay floating. I recognize that part of it. So I would try, if it was me, I would try Tube Effects freeze-dried cubes, because that's going to stay floating for a crazy long amount of time, and those worms are tiny. That's what I would try. As far as a pellet goes, I would try extreme nano pellets, but I would instead of like throwing them into an aquarium, I would place them. And so what I mean by that is you put food on the top of water very lightly. It like floats on that meniscus. The minute it kind of like breaks through, it'll fall. But so if you get it right on that top, the fish can grab it. And if they're not feeding frenzying, it won't all fall. But I would try Tube Effects freeze-dried worms, and I would just be feeding the Extreme Nano. It's my go-to for small fish. Let's see here. Is there any actual evidence that the hobby is growing, especially after the COVID increase? So that's part of the problem with any study. Who's paying for the study and what is the result they want? And so, you could, if you just went by revenue, right? I'd be like, no, the hobby's not growing. Our revenue is not going up, right? And let's just assume that we represented everybody. You could also say, like, what if revenue is down, but we had more customers? Is the hobby bigger? Or do we do a better job at getting more customers, right? And so you also have, are we talking about just America? Are we talking about the world? Are we talking about, so I think in general, it's always in flux, and you might see like, well, monster fish are dying out, African cichlids are dying out, but shrimp and nanotanks and paludariums and houseplants and that kind of stuff is all on the upswing, right? So I'm not sure that I could probably pull up a couple of things and be like, here's these studies and what they say, but take it with a grain of salt of who paid for the study. A lot of times it will be a company that wants to sell some crap. So imagine Aquariumcoop wanted to really expand into retail stores. If I paid for a study, let's say it's $20,000, and someone works some data up and provides a report that says aquatics has grown by 27% in the year 2022. If you're a pet retailer, you have to double down on aquatics. And then we follow that up with some advertising next to those studies in the magazines and everything, that we would sell a lot more Aquariumcoop stuff to these retail stores. Now, does that mean that the hobby actually got bigger? Don't know. We bought basically a paid study, and almost all studies like that are kind of biased. Who's paying for it? What's the result they want to see? And so, if it's way off, they're not going to be like, oh, the hobby went down by 98%. Let's say it went up by 98%. They can't do that, but they could say, well, if we go by revenue, it's up by 20%. If we go by unique customer IDs, it's down by 11%. Which metric should we use? Ooh, they'd like it to grow? Yeah, we're going to use the revenue metric on this one. We're going to omit the unique user ID part of it. So, yeah, I can't say one way or another. I could say that from going to like Aquashellas, they had the biggest one they ever had last time. They keep getting bigger. Is that Aquashella just getting bigger? Is that the hobby being bigger? And I was talking to a lot of people, right? A lot of one-on-ones, because that's all I do. And a lot of people that visited, they had only been in the hobby for 3 months to a year, right? So that's a new hobbyist. That seems like it's growing. But without the data showing how fast did people leave the hobby, it could have been 1-for-1 trades. Or 2 people could have left and 1 person could have got it in, right? But from my observation, it seems like the hobby is very healthy. Seems like I'm talking to a lot of people that are getting into the hobby. I'm not talking to nearly as many people getting out. There's always people getting out, but it doesn't seem like there seems to be a mass exodus. I think some of the clear signs that we can see is, we talked about last Sunday, right? Energy costs going way up around the world. They're asking, how can I keep the tanks cheaper? They're not going, how can I sell my tanks to get the most money out of them, right? So that's a sign that people still want to be in the hobby. They just need to find ways to stay in it as opposed to finding ways to get out of it. Can you please take the Edmonds Kingston Ferry and come over to Silverdale to check out farmland? It's my local mom and pop. I want to shop there, but I'm skeptical of their quality. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I've only ever been there once, and it was many, many, many years ago. But I also wouldn't be the guy that, like, if I don't like a store, I do my best to just not talk about it. Because I don't, imagine I go and I visit them, and then I say, they're great, and they make a lot more money. Let's say I visit them and I say, you know what, I don't like what they're doing. And now their kid can't go to college because I made a comment. Or something like that, right? So I don't like to be the bringer of bad news. And instead I try to focus on, so instead of saying don't shop at store XYZ, I try and just say, hey, I like store ABC. You can figure out on your own. Now that doesn't mean don't read between the lines. I didn't say that store, so it's a bad store. A lot of times, I bet you there's some directory out there that, like, there's probably 52,000 different pet stores in America or something. And it's like, in my lifetime, I'll only ever visit 1,000 of them, so I can't even come close to knowing if all the stores are good or bad. All right. It has been 2 hours. Sunday school is over. I didn't get a bell. I should have got a bell. I should get a timer. Somehow I click it when I start, and then there's like a visual like bell ringing, and it's like lunchtime or whatever, like break or recess. Maybe it's recess. Maybe we're gonna kick it down to like middle or grade school level. We're going for recess. And I can rest my voice, work on getting ready for tomorrow's meetings, and I gotta go have dinner with Grandma. So after this, I got about an hour and a half of work I can do. Then it's dinner with Grandma. And so don't neglect your grandmas. It's been too many weeks since I visited mine, so today's the day. Go and have dinner. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for supporting us. Thanks for my voice not giving out. Thanks for the new members. Thanks to those that donated members. Thanks to those that come and see us at the shows. And all the ways you guys support us, whether it's liking, subscribing, sharing, just being here, just listening in while you take care of your fish or enjoying nature. All of that helps. We'll see you next Sunday.